Booyah! Oh,
Hello,
not this.
Christopher.
Hi, Karsten. How's it going?
Awesome as always. How
Oh,
was
that's
your
great.
week, my dear friend?
Oh, it's been a very, very long week. I'm as mentioned a couple of times, I'm working in different time zones and featuring still not really leaving the house for anything, but doing everything from at home. I feel like in the twilight zone.
You are in
But
Twilight
yeah,
Zone. That is basically part of the story, right? Um, isn't that part of your job description? Being Twilight Zone?
a twilight zone
Would
management.
would before we start with speaking about our week, I, because you screwed up last time, I do the introduction. Welcome to Open Clouds Dev number 13. 13. Like
13.
13.
It's an unlucky
And,
number.
and it's a nice number, it's a lucky number.
It's
And
we'll make it a lucky number.
supported and presented by, and now Christopher, decide for one of the two again and sing it this time.
Vanilla Stack, sponsoring open.clouds.dev and featuring the Cloud Report.
Awesome. Awesome. I could not have done it better. And you know who is today with us on the show?
I don't see
It's
her.
Frieder. Again. How is that possible? I was so sure that she is on the show. I know that she's basically already preparing the next edition of the Cloud Report, which is supposed to come out in less than 4 weeks.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
I
Oh yeah.
mean,
Tight
I'm
schedule.
really,
Tight
I'm
schedule.
thankful. Tell Friederike thank you because she gives us a running gag every week.
Oh, she's
That's
so happy.
what
She's so happy about that. She
I mean.
loves it being
What more
our
can you give people than fun and laughter and happiness? And maybe, I'll just infiltrate it the other way around, um, and get featured in the Cloud Report. I'll just have a live interview.
who has given you permission to do that.
I myself have.
But Christopher, how dare you do that? Sorry, pun
Fuck the
intended.
corporate world.
Oh, dear Christopher, Alan Branston,
Yes, sir.
I am the corporate world.
I
So,
know. But it's all good. It's all good.
but speaking of the corporate world, I
Yes.
like it when it focuses on my finger.
So what's your finger trying to tell us?
My finger is trying to tell you what do you make of that?
You have a new hand lotion and you're trying to display how awesomely soft your hands are?
Do you want to try again? If not, I'm going to reveal the mystery.
Yes, please.
I happily do. And to all the viewers out there, I apologize upfront for singing in a few seconds.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear SUSE. Happy birthday to you. Best Linux company in the world.
Ooh, 28 years. Wow. Huh.
20
Yeah.
wasn't there a movie called 28 years later?
Days.
Really? Thank you, Christopher. you completely
I
screwed
always love
what I.
bursting your joke bubble. It's no problem. They pay me to do this.
Aha.
The cloud report sponsors me. Think about that. But yeah,
Don't.
28 years of Linux, 28 years of
Linux
open
galore.
source. Um, the thing I find so fascinating about that number is, if we think about it, 1 year earlier was when generally, Linus Torvalds made his little announcement.
We just talked about that last week, didn't we?
Yes, and he decided to kind of open up the newly created Linux kernel to the world. And who could have imagined what could happen with that? And even coming from, Linus Torvalds opening this as one of the first open source projects and the Linux kernel, thinking about all of the companies that have grown around this topic, all of the people who earn their money with that, all of the fun people are having in communities, all the stuff in the world that's running on Linux, who would have known? And for a guy like me, I'm only slightly older.
I just wanted to say, I would imagine that you would say, oh, SUSE is older than me because I'm just 27.
Yeah, I wrote that on LinkedIn yesterday, while I was giving my little celebration. Yeah, I was a little kid when that was founded. But what dumbfounds me about that is,
aren't you today still a kid, at least by heart?
oh yes, I am. Oh yes, and I and everybody else should never forget to be the kid sometimes, and
Absolutely.
be naive and be open and believe in the good. But
We will
what
talk
I
about
find,
that a little bit later. We discussed
yes,
it up front, but we talk about that a little later.
and
But please
and
go ahead, elaborate further.
just think about this. So 28, especially for people that might be older than I am, 28 isn't that much of a big number. But in IT years are kind of
It
like
is
dog years.
centuries. It is centuries.
I mean, 28 years ago, nobody could have ever imagined that we have a live stream like this, that we're using technology like this, that we're using the internet to produce a show. Nobody, could have figured what might come through the large technology steps we're taking. So that's kind of the ultimate celebration I have.
Should I tell you what I started with in regards to SUSE?
Oh, yes,
First,
please.
there was, it must have been around 94, 95, something along those lines. There was a CD on one of the computer magazines I bought back then, and back then it was just SUSE Linux. And I got it and I placed it into my computer, and I immediately deleted it because it was no Windows. But that was my first approach. SUSE was actually one of my, if not my very first approach with Linux. Later on, I moved over to Mandrake Linux because I so much loved the Tetris which you could play while installing your Linux. And unfortunately, the game was not to be found on the later on installed system. So I had to actually reinstall the thing 4 times just to play Tetris. That was awesome. Really, no joke. I was looking into.
I can imagine you very lively doing that, just erasing it to play the game again. Hey, why not?
And it was so much fun. That was the first time, actually. Then again, 94, 95, where I stumbled across SUSE, and a little later, must have been 96, 97, 98-ish. They had a booth at I feel like it was IFA. The consumer goods show, which is currently actually running in some sort of a special edition in Berlin. If I recall correctly, they had a booth there, and that booth was placed next to the other guys doing Linux. And I remembered that I saw the SUSE booth, and I looked around, and I saw a penguin there. Not a
penguin! Yay!
Penguin. And then I headed over to the Red Hat booth because there was that nice hats. So yeah, that was basically my first steps with SUSE, and then later on, I basically enjoyed looking at SUSE and seeing it grow.
So, I've sent you this in our Slack channel. I love sending you these pictures from videos that you did way back in the day.
No, wait. Those are dick pics. That's something completely different.
But I think I found the picture from when you installed your first Linux. I don't have screen control. Otherwise, I would show that now. But I don't have
you
screen
can show
control.
it. You can show it. You can just share it on your screen. I will show what you share.
You can just show it in the Slack channel.
No, I do not have Slack open at the moment. But if you like
So, yeah, wait,
I'm going
I'll
to open
download
it because I want to make this show centered around open source. What is that? Where is Chris? What did you do?
I shared my screen.
Awesomely, I just see a Skype logo.
Oh, that sucks.
And the screen is black. Now I see something.
That's.
Oh.
This is a picture of Karsten when he installed his first version of Linux.
Wait. I can make it visible.
Oh, people shouldn't miss out on that. In the worst case, I'll have to have a T-shirt made.
That is bad, my friend. That is really bad.
I think it's awesome.
No, it's not.
You look so fresh and vibrant.
Princeton.
I'll stop sharing my screen and maybe just to swiftly change the topic away here. Hey, Karsten, you were talking about installing stuff, and installing is always kind of stressful and hassly.
It is. Chris, we should do something about that, shouldn't we?
I also think we should make stuff easier to install, but I wouldn't know where to start.
Well, absolutely no problem. I can help you. I have prepared something.
Okay.
Because what you are referring to is this thing.
Are you still sharing your screen? I'm not seeing your screen. How unfair.
You don't see my screen?
No, I kicked that off when I shared my screen.
That's a bad thing for you. Give me a second. So
I
shared it again with you. Now you can see it.
Yes. First look at Vanilla Stack. Ooh. Hello world.
Shh. Oh, you are gone. You are not gone. That's a secret. It's not to be revealed until the 15th of September.
So this is a very, very special sneak preview. So the 1 or 2 fans that we do have are taking part in a very, very special...
Wait, stop. We have fans?
Yes. I think so.
No.
Well, if we don't have fans, we have haters watching us. And that's even greater, because behind every successful person stand a couple of haters making them successful.
I felt like it was a little bit different. It was it included some people of a different gender, but nonetheless, I'm on your side. Usually haters are of a different gender. It's a different story. So I wanted to show something. Is that what you want me to do?
Yes, please. You said you have a solution to make my installation problems a lot easier.
Absolutely. Give me a second. I show you. No, that's the wrong thing. Here we go. Oh, who is Wolfgang Soll? Never heard that name. Oops. Yeah, the solution is use OpenSUSE Linux.
Well,
Nice. Ooh, 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 ooh.
ooh,
Ha, ha,
web front end. Are
ha.
you telling me I can do this out of my browser, Karsten?
Okay, let's be a little bit serious. No, I can't do that. I can't be serious.
Sure.
No chance. Because I'm excited and I'm tired because we are working so intensively on that. What you currently see is basically a very, very sneaky preview of Vanilla Stack Installer. And when we discussed things up front, the both of us, you basically said, "Oh, guys, you make a bold statement. You say we don't need any terminal anymore."
Well,
And I was like, "Yep." And you said, "No." And I said,
no, that's not possible.
"What did I say?"
Yes, yes, it is. I'm going to build that, is what you said.
No, I actually said I need to go to restrooms, but that's a different story. So, Vanilla Stack. Again, I'm not going to finish the installation here. First thing. Second thing, I disconnected the backend because I do not want to start anything on the backend now. Still, just showing some front end aspects. So, but what we do and what we want to achieve with Vanilla Stack is basically that we want to completely revamp the way you are installing your cloud stacks. There is still knowledge required. There is still obviously some fiddling required. We cannot circumvent that, at least not completely. But if you think of the typical way of installing things, it's typically either typing cryptical commands on your command line or, I don't know, copying cryptical commands. And you usually don't know what you do. And frankly, that's the way I experience it, and I'm pretty sure it's the way most people experience installations of cloud.
Repositories, dependencies missing.
Exactly,
Oh my
exactly,
God,
exactly.
the package
So
wasn't compiled
exactly,
correctly.
what you see here is basically, and I can give me a second. I'm basically uh, uh, making it a little bit bigger, so
Oh,
it's a little
awesome.
bit more approachable. So what we first of all did, we decided to go with a website instead of command line because command line sucks. Secondly, we are obviously opinionated, and thirdly, keep in mind that is a very early preview. It's not the final version. And it is perhaps subject to change. Then again, although it is launched in 2 weeks, but we are currently still working on the, on the website to make it appeal a little bit more, and so on and so forth. So please bear
By
with me.
viewing this live webinar, you agree to our terms and conditions.
No, you don't. So point being, you will need to install this installer somehow anyways and anyhows, and I'm going to tell you, and it's really a secret because but I can tell it because nobody's watching us. We will make a version of that installer available from our website, so you will be able to install Vanilla Stack. Not in the beginning. We won't be able to do that middle of September, but we expect it to be in place around middle to end, perhaps beginning of November, something along those lines. So middle to end October, beginning of November, where you basically would log into your account and then would be able to actually use that kind of installer without doing anything. And it's working with bare metal, it's working with VMs, it's working with private clouds, it's working with public clouds, it's even working with hyperscalers. So, having said that, how would you start that installer? You ask. You ask that.
Karsten,
You
how
asked
do I
it.
start the installer?
Good question. Glad you asked. You do that by either starting a Docker image, console, or by downloading a live CD image. So we are creating a live CD image which you just can download, and you can either burn it on a CD or just throw it into your virtualization program of choice. Start it from there, and then everything is included there, so you just start it up. We don't
That's
want to
awesome.
install
I don't
anything
have
in
an
your
optical
environment.
drive.
I know. I don't have one either. But we don't want to install anything on your on your computer actually, so we decided to go that route. So that is the very first screen of the installer, and we will go up to the nodes screen. I won't show things beyond that point because reasons. So you start basically with the typical kind of welcome. You see you need basically a minimum of 2 nodes, a minimum of 1 gigabyte of RAM and 20 gigabytes of HDD or better SSD storage. You need to have root access. I mean, we are installing a Kubernetes, right? You need to have some IP addresses and host names which you can assign to the cluster, and you might need to have a small cup of tea or coffee or a juice. So pressing the next button, you will need to agree to the terms and conditions. If you look carefully, currently it's lorem ipsum, but then again, we will have the final terms and conditions included there, but we do not want to disclose them now. No, actually, our lawyer is still working on them. So if you accept it, you can go on, pressing next, and now the magic begins. What you basically do in the first step is you select the installation kind. So the installation kind always refers to the underlying Kubernetes cluster. Again, as I told you, we do not use vanilla stack in regards to an operating system. To us, Kubernetes is our operating system. What you would need to do is to basically configure to some extent your Kubernetes cluster. So the first choice you basically have to do is, do I want to have it as an HA, high availability cluster, or not? If you don't go with HA, you could basically start with one master node and one worker node. You can go up to 99 nodes if you like. If you say, I want to have it as an HA cluster, it defaults to 3 master nodes, and you are not able to go below that point. So the minimum value of master nodes then is 3.
So you're telling me even an infrastructure tool like an HA is automatically installed?
HA is basically, in regards to Kubernetes, the high availability aspect in regards to Kubernetes is basically depending on how many masters you have. So it's basically more like we could have just asked for the master nodes, but then again, why would you choose more? Typically, you would choose more because you have high availability aspects to cover, and that would basically imply that you want to have minimum 3 masters, because if one of them is falling down, you still have 2 for your workloads. So the typical aspect for high availability is 3 masters and usually a minimum of 3 workers. So that's what we basically show here.
That's awesome. You know why I'm asking? Because I've been in a lot of customer conversations or partner conversations, technical conversations, and people are really, really used to, in the normal server infrastructure world, to have the high availability as an extra tool, as some form of extension, just a piece of software you install to do the cluster.
It's built in. That's the beauty of Kubernetes in that regard. Kubernetes, if you have more than, say, 2 masters, you're automatically running in some sort of HA configuration. That's the beauty of that. Basically, if you want to run productive workloads, you want to switch to some sort of an HA configuration. And you would then want to install additional tool sets. If you look here in that additional tools section, which we don't touch now because still secrets, I might be tempted to show it next week. You will then be able to select some of the additional tools. What you do then here is, in that screen as well, you define your additional workloads you want to install. Look at the navigation at the site. If I say install Rook, OpenStack Cloud Foundry, whatever, you have Rook, OpenStack Cloud Foundry pages as well. And the amount of minimum required worker nodes has changed to 4. That's because we have OpenStack here. If we go away from OpenStack, still I have breakpoints set here. Pardon me on that. If I go back to say, or if I say no OpenStack, the default then goes back to 3 worker nodes. The interesting thing is, if you opt for HA cluster, all of those workloads run in HA configuration, at least in regard to the environment they are in, because Kubernetes is then HA. And if we say, okay, install OpenStack, we are greeted with 4 worker nodes. If I press next, now comes let's say that's the only way where you need to work with the console. What we do with Vanilla Stack is we basically go and head over to your machines, either virtual or bare metal machines, and we do an installation there, right? In order to do that, we don't want to know anything in regard to passwords or whatever. We do not care. We had those discussions internally. We don't want to have passwords. We don't want to see them. So we decided to create a private public key pair. So the private part of that key pair is inside that machine, and it stays there. It's deleted after the installation. The same is true for the public key, which is displayed here, the SSH key. So you need to basically bring that one over. We will definitely automate that as well. If you say, okay, if you say,
there's a script for
automate,
that,
by the way, because we need that SSH key to access the machine. So I cannot say, okay, give it to me and I copy it over to you. Forget what I just said. We won't never ever automate that aspect. You need to copy that SSH key over there. But just copy it onto all of the machines you want to use with Vanilla Stack. And that's the last time you see your terminal then. If you have done that, just press the copy key. You have it now in your clipboard. Head over there, paste it, do whatever you want to do with that. We don't care. Copy it, make it available, assign it to a user, and then press the I copied the SSH key to all nodes checkbox and press next. Now, and that's the last screen I'm going to show, now the actual magic to some extent begins, because what you do here is you basically note down the IP addresses of your machines you want to use as masters and as workers. You note down a username like Sunshine. That's the user the SSH key is associated with. And you would then basically just use that and basically configure that. You can always toggle that checkbox here in regards to using just reusing the master value. And then we have the worker nodes here, where you basically do the same. I don't know. Perhaps we stay with root, couldn't care less. And now you can do your assignments here. So if you have like 4 worker nodes, if you work with Kubernetes, you need to know that you usually do not put any workloads onto the master. It's basically not what you want to do, because the master is basically just ensuring that your cluster is up and running and working, right? And you put all the workloads on your worker nodes. So and what you do now is you basically say which node is responsible for what. So we have a logic in there again. If we say we want to run OpenStack, we need to have it on 4 virtual machines. So it would check that. Rook needs to be present on 3 virtual machines. So it would just allow you to continue if you have the right settings done. But you can basically choose which one is using what. and then off you go. The next steps would then be defining IP addresses for the cluster, doing Rook settings, OpenStack settings, Cloud Foundry settings, installing some additional management tools, and installing Prometheus, Grafana. I was not allowed to say that. From that screen, you would enter your subscription key, and you might ask, Karsten, subscription key, is Vanilla Stack expensive? Ask it.
How expensive is this, Karsten? My credit card has a limit.
Should I give you the bad news? We are not offering any trial versions.
You big bad corporation.
Because we will be offering the commercial edition in a free version. The only thing you need to do is to register, and then you become, and then you get your then you basically get your subscription key aside, and you just need to then edit. Oh, wrong. Pardon me.
This
there.
is really a theme for you today, huh? You know what?
Edit there, and then ultimately you just do your installation. So that is basically the first look, the very first look, because frankly, that's the first look ever for somebody outside my organization onto the Vanilla Stack installer. Chris, I need to kill you now.
Yeah, I mean, Karsten, normally I interrupt you and I have stupid questions especially about the technology and all this stuff, but there was nothing I could say or throw in for the moment because it's easy and it makes complete sense. And even, I was thinking, what you don't know, Mr. CEO, is what we salespeople in open source do, and how many cores and how many V's, something or other. And oh, by the way, do you want that to be able to scale? And by the way, you might need some services and support and crap with it. And basically what you're saying is, go to my homepage and you can start it from there. And since you've signed up to my enterprise package, you already have a key, my friend. Just have fun computing. And that seems a very, very good idea, Karsten. So kudos at that point. And thank you for the first.
It's always a team effort.
So I'm thinking, so for one, stack is really important here. Why did you call it vanilla stack? Vanilla, okay, let it be coming from vanilla projects, but that's, no brainer. But stack, Karsten, stack, because what I saw in the very first window you had there was I can install an operating system, which is Kubernetes. I can actually install a platform
Pardon me to interrupt. You would definitely need to install Linux up front. And we happily support pretty much any Linux. So Vanilla Stack is working perfectly on SUSE Linux, for example.
That's great.
It's working perfectly on OpenSUSE.
Mm-hmm.
It's working perfectly on Debian.
Mm-hmm.
And even on Red Hat. I said a bad R word. So you need to have that, but we don't care because we feel like the Linux wars are over. To us, Linux is commodity in a positive way. As long as it supports Docker or Creo as container runtimes, off you go. I just wanted to say that.
Yes, but what I'm getting at primarily is really think about, and over the last 28 years, not much has changed there. Very, very often, we have 2 weeks of discussion, which hardware vendor are we going to choose, because it's somehow it's really margins of cents of savings you make, and it's always endless discussions. So then we finally get a piece of hardware, or maybe, the IT guy in my company said, oh, screw all this, do it on some cloud, whatever. But then we've only made the decision, okay, we have somewhere to run something on. And then if I'm not fluent in open source, and if I haven't been working with any of these great open source projects, normally what I'll have to do is go to each and every page, download the software, read the doc, try and
Forget it.
figure
You
out how
don't need
this
to do
stuff
that.
works,
Forget it. You don't need to
and
do that.
test around. And what I'm seeing here really, and this is the jackpot of it all, is I don't have to do all these steps of decisions. I don't have to care about basically, and this shouldn't sound bad, but good. I don't have to care about the background and the dock and all this crap, but I just need to be able to use a mouse, use a keyboard, and have an internet connection basically to connect to my browser. Or if I'm doing it at home, bare metal, I don't even need the internet connection. But that's just fascinating because it's so different from what I'm seeing with any vendor and with anybody basically using and maintaining infrastructure and software in companies.
Well, no, that was the wrong one. I wanted to show that one. Mummy, I'm on TV. You basically nailed it. The reason we can think of those things differently is basically two reasons. First of all, we do not care about Linux. We basically say there needs to be a Linux, and it better be a good Linux. But nonetheless, any Linux would do, as long as it is modern enough. But if you have, for example, commercial needs, you can definitely, and you should definitely use the Linux of your choice. Absolutely. So you could definitely use Debian, for example. But we don't care. That's why a lot of let me put it that way, a lot of complexity is already taken away. Because you don't need to install Linux for vanilla. That's wrong. You need to have one, but you could go with whatever Linux you want to go. You could basically choose whatever Linux suits you best. So that is one thing why we can think of that differently. And the second thing is we think of Vanilla Stack as a platform, as an ecosystem. So to us, the only thing that makes sense is basically to have it as simple and as easy to be set up as possible, because you do not want to care about details. I mean, you do want, and you can definitely tweak the system to your likings, because it's ultimately just vanilla projects we use, like Kubernetes, open source Cloud Foundry, OpenStack, Rook, and so on and so forth. It's just, the community-driven open source projects we use. So all the tools, and when I say forget about your command line, I mean, frankly, there will always be people that love command lines and hate browsers. They can use all of their command line tools. If not, well, they get an opinionated installation there, which is set up in a way that it is basically guaranteed to run, which is already integrated. And ultimately, which is, and I don't want to be too negative onto what's on the market, because that might be understood as some sort of arrogance, which it isn't. But we don't have a burden of a long history.
Yeah, but
we can start freshly.
Yeah, you know what's happening there? If you're talking about 28 years back, even if you'd have the money to just plonk a PC in front of someone 28 years ago, he or she wouldn't have known how to use it. Probably they would have needed a 2 to 3, maybe 4-week course actually learning how to use the PC. If you think about it nowadays, if you put a small child in front of a tablet, in front of a laptop, they probably even know how to do stuff we don't know how to do. And the same thing is
there was an awesome example when Apple introduced the iPhone. They handed over the iPhone to a small 6-year-old child, which never had a phone before, and it took that kid like 2 minutes or less than 2 minutes to figure out that slide to unlock mechanism, because it just felt natural. I mean, we are far away from that. Frankly, we are far away. It's still a technical thing. It's still complicated. Although we want to take away most of the complexity.
But you know why I'm mentioning this because one reason why this is great is because it's kind of one of the core values of open source, which is making stuff accessible, making stuff understandable and making stuff transparent, which is really, really great. But the other great thing is, think about the world and the happenings on the world that IT has enabled by making IT accessible, by giving everybody a phone, by enabling mobile networks, by inventing stuff like Wi-Fi, like Linux, like Windows, call it what it is. But through technology being nowadays accessible and available for everyone to use, I have the feeling that a lot of different departments, inventions, whatever it is, are being made because technology is accessible. And this is kind of a comparable step, where I'm saying, like, why would I? And that's what monopolist software companies do. Why would I try to create an elite of customers and users by pegging them and flagging them per certificate, per learning course, whatever it is, to exactly this one solution? And it's really complicated, and without having an invest of 100K for training, you won't even be able to use this piece of hardware software. And we're going in the other direction with stuff like Vanilla Stack. Would anybody at the car dealership say, hey, here's your car, but I bet you can't drive it because you don't even know how it works, and I'm not willing to show you unless you pay another 50,000 euros extra. Then I'll Tesla then I'll unlock some features, or I'll give you more battery power, or whatever it is. And that's very, very unfair. But by breaking down the complexity of, in your case, the installation routines and kind of the complexity of the code and bits and pieces of these open source projects, you're making it accessible. And maybe, just maybe, people will use this system for productivity, to invent something new, to create a new platform, to offer awesome services they couldn't offer before because topics were too complex. And that's where I know I'm always a bit of a dreamer, and I'm very naive, and I always, paint these big romantic IT and open source pictures, but that's what the core and the essence burns down to, at least in my world.
I love it when you just speak, because I have a timeout then.
Yeah.
Some time to relax, because Chris is actually saying, oh, I like how my backlighting is working today. Chris is actually saying what I would wanted to say. So basically, let me perhaps respond to that a little bit. Again, we have the advantage of being able to start completely fresh, which is luxury. You usually don't have that. And during our years in basically integrating awesome infrastructure, because we are amongst the proudest SUSE partners, we learned one thing. Everything is too complex. So you are, and that's basically, and I can tell you why, because the reason for that is that those things are made by technicians. Mm-hmm. The software stacks we are using nowadays, be it a SUSE software stack, be it a whatever SUSE software stack, if it's not done by Microsoft, is basically done by technicians for technicians. The problem is the people that are using those stacks are actually no deep technicians. There's a misperception of the target audience, specifically and especially with open source projects, because we usually want to address everything, every single option, every single flag that might be required needs to be there. So the problem is you are overwhelmed by complexity when installing those things. You are overwhelmed by complexity when basically running those things. And if you look onto what is there in the typical customer environment in regard to people, let me put it that way. There are perhaps like 5% of those people that are really and deeply skilled into working with the command line. Many of
You
those
need guys
guys.
like Urlind for that. You need the real experts.
Yeah, but frankly, where do you find them? And that's no joke. Uh, um, and then there's another aspect in there. So that's basically part of the problem. So basically, it's done by technicians for technicians, and it's done by technicians for technicians on their perceived level of knowledge. So if you are not on that level, well, you have a problem. And
But an actual business problem, and this has happened to me in my professional career in different places, different times, was I'm a marketing and sales guy, so I had marketing
I
and
see.
sales stuff I wanted to do. And sometimes I needed the aid of good software to help me there. And so I put out a request to local IT and their management saying like, hey, I'm the marketing guy, Christmas is coming up. For example, I want to send out 1 million more emails than we do usually. And this on the one day, I need a resource for that. And then they discuss and we don't have any hardware, no software, and oh God, we need to call the license guy from the company, and they're discussing. And then 2 days before Easter, I get a really proud email saying like, hey, we got this shit set up for you. And that's the moment where I'm saying, well, guys, the worst case scenario happened. Since you guys fucked up, I couldn't send out my stuff. I didn't make my quota. My boss got mad, and I'm not working in marketing anymore. So go screw yourselves. Thank you for nothing. And it sounds so very, very funny when you talk about it, but this is a real life scenario. This is
It
what has
is.
happened.
It is.
This is one of the reasons why hyperscalers have gained so much traction, because people were so sick of their own
Exactly.
IT, they would go there and say, like, I can get a better service from a third party. But, this is rolling back a bit with Vanilla Stack saying, like, well, we've talked about security and that it's not always the best option to go into public scenarios. And with this, we are closing a gap that we basically maybe didn't know that existed before we started talking, but it's there, and you have a solution for it.
Let me put
Ta-da!
it that way. Because that was the third point I wanted to address.
Damn, I'm stealing your points, Karsten. I'm so sorry about that.
As long as you don't steal my guts, everything's good. So what I I'm tired. Pardon me. What I wanted to point out is that part of the reason, from my perspective, why so many people are heading over to hyperscalers is actually what you laid out, and what you say is basically, let me put it differently, they have a self-service option for you. They have an easy to implement self-service option. Let me put it that way. With Vanilla Stack, we are not directly targeting hyperscalers in regards to competition. It is able to run there. When it runs on hyperscalers, the value proposition is a little bit different. It's basically having your own secure cloud stack on a not so trustworthy environment. Let me put it that way. But what is the reason why many people head over there, even hard and deep dive technical guys? It's simplicity. Because you have your dashboards. I left out some bad words. You have your dashboards. And although you need to do some adjustments there, it's typically just working with a website. It's typically just pressing a button, say, okay, I want to have a virtual machine, that size, that base image, that kind of SSD or HDD, and then off you go. So, and that is very appealing. And that definitely supports what you said. With Vanilla Stack, first of all, we give the technical guys, because you just seen part of the installer, not the App Store. The App Store is basically close to what you would expect from a hyperscaler in regards to having apps you roll out, and being able to access, for example, your infrastructure service environments. And we are making it very easy for you to roll out your OpenStack infrastructure service environments for your virtual machines, for example, on top of Kubernetes. So it basically uses all the resources, and it's ultimately not more complex than, rolling out a somewhat sophisticated environment on a hyperscaler environment within a VPC. And if you did not understand what I was referring to at the moment, exactly that is why we set up and why we make Vanilla Stack. No, the point is we want to make it simple, but we do not want to make it too simple. So it's more like being simplistic. But it's not about basically, and that's then the negative aspect of all the hyperscalers. It's not about locking you in, and
It's
basically,
about exactly. It's about unbranding. It's about gaining freedom because what I pushed away at the beginning was the vanilla part, which means that you have an agnostic solution. It just doesn't matter because even if I'm talking some form of commercial solution, Kubernetes is Kubernetes with all of them, and OpenStack is OpenStack with all of them, just with a certain flavor or form. And you can even do that if you would want to. But
exactly.
the thing is, why would I? People keep constantly asking me because every t-shirt that doesn't have an open source company logo on it doesn't have a brand on it with me. I just don't wear brands. That's the thing I don't do. And why don't I do it? Because this t-shirt has the same effect. It's a t-shirt that I'm wearing. It keeps me warm. It keeps me out of trouble because I'm not walking around
I'm
naked.
out of that age. I do not need to run. I do not need to run or wear something just because there is a make attached to it.
And
If it's a brand, if it's a make, then there better be a good reason to do that, which might be awesome support, which might be additional features that are not available on the market, but then again, additional features, if not being made available to the public, to me is vendor lock. And that is something which I want to avoid here.
Yes.
I feel like you don't like what I'm going to say next.
Uh-oh. I'll hang up.
Even the open source companies of this world. Let's take an example. Let me think. Red Hat, for example. Well, Red Hat claims to be an open source company, right? Red Hat is the biggest not independent open source company. They do a lot of products based on OpenStack, on Kubernetes, OpenShift, for example, and based on Ceph and Rook, enterprise storage and enterprise storage for containers. The problem is, although that is open source, it is still a vendor lock because OpenShift is just running on top of RHEL, on top of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. It won't run on top of Debian. It won't run on top of OpenSUSE. It simply won't. So you will be forced to buy yourself into the Red Hat ecosystem if you want to run Red Hat OpenShift, if you want to run Red Hat OpenStack, if you want to run Red Hat Enterprise Storage. And although the product then is open source, basically, let's be honest, the open source variant of the product is basically unusable. You can do that. You can run it, you can download it, you can compile everything, you can set it up, awesome, but it takes you ages to do that. So that's a different way of imposing some sort of vendor lock. For God's sake, it's just Red Hat that is doing that, and not other open source companies. Because I would consider please let me finish that thought. Let me finish that thought because it saves your job. It's better I say it. To me, that is heartbreaking in regard to what those companies tend to say. Because they say we are open, we are a community, we are this and that, and the best companies in the world in that regard. But ultimately and finally, they are imposing the same kind of vendor lock on you as a Microsoft does. Perhaps a little bit more nuanced. Perhaps not like, it's Windows, it's not compatible with anything. But on the other end, let's be open on the other end then again as well. Windows has some very compelling arguments for it, although I hate it. I really hate it. But the point is, it's working, it's closed, it's simple to use for most of the people. And frankly, I'd rather pay for that than for some sort of vendor-locked open source ecosystem.
Yes.
I'm not finger pointing anything, really. I would never ever do that. Never. I would congratulate a company to its 28th birthday, and then I would, and frankly, I know that I do not make friends by saying that. I would finger point them and say, you guys are doing vendor locking. That's what I say. And with Vanilla Stack, let me put it that way. I'm not Jesus Christ. I'm not Allah or whoever. And I do not want to do something in regards to religion. But with and what I want to say is basically, I could fail, or I could perhaps even run into vendor lock as well, imposing myself some sort of a vendor lock. That could happen, but at least our plan is not to do that. Our plan is to be as open as possible, So that's why I'm speaking about an ecosystem. That's why I'm speaking about avoiding vendor locks. And if you impose some sort of vendor lock, then you better impose some vendor lock, first of all, with arguments, and secondly, better on the most widely used product. And the most widely used product, frankly, is the community product, is the vanilla product. So,
yes.
Pardon me, we will cut that out. The show will end with Christopher saying some nifty little things and with Karsten just smiling.
Oh, no, I think, that needs to be said, Karsten. And it's great that there's companies and people like you that do step up and say that. All I was going to add earlier on, while you were talking about open source and free and blah-de-da-de-do, one of the major misconceptions, and this has been created by the closed source companies and the media, is the free in open source does not stand for free as in free beer. It stands for free as in freedom. The freedom of choice I'm gaining, the freedom of transparency I'm gaining, the freedom to change stuff, to make stuff better, to get involved. And I think that's the important thing, and why, thinking... Basically, the large scale commercial open source companies work with big industry leaders. It's always about the Fortune 500, about the top 100 of this, the top 100 of that, and there's no problems. They have budgets. They're big corporations. They have their way of moving. But what we do tend to forget, and at least here in Germany, it's what makes the country work and the country go round, is the small and medium businesses. It isn't only the big and large corporations. A lot more people work in the medium-sized businesses. A lot more people buy their services, their products, whatever it is. And you know me, ever since we started this, I've been against the monopolization, and I've been against unfair treatment just because you're not part of a money and wealth elite, or you're not a part of an industry elite that controls whole markets and whole industries. But I'm talking about people like you and me who want to have a good life, who want to have a job, who want to work, who want to have families, a house, a garden, whatever it is. And there, this component of freedom and freedom of choice and staying free is important.
I'm totally on your side. And again, to me, that is basically what sets the bar there. I want to earn money. I'm not... Bye, Christopher. I want to earn money. I want to make a living.
You're a capitalist, monopolist, evil guy.
I am. But the point is, and that was a process. Really, that was really a process. I started on the Microsoft side of things. I was a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional for several consecutive years.
Holy moly, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, you learn a lot when you talk
to
them. I was working with Microsoft to position Windows Phone, for example, back then.
Holy moly, I need to show that picture again. That was from that time. No,
that picture was a little later. And then then there some sort of transition started within myself. So I, wondered. I moved slowly from being part of the proprietary software kind of ecosystem into a enterprise open source ecosystem. And then I figured that could not be it, because then again, don't get me wrong, I love SUSE. I love Red Hat. I love many products, many people in this company. I admire them in those companies. But the point is, I feel like they are imposing a vendor lock. And that is what turns me off. Because second thing many people might not know is that I am actually a developer by origin.
Oh.
And as a developer, you hate vendor locks. You truly hate them, because it's poison. It's something. It works slowly, but once it unfolds, it basically breaks you. So I hate vendor locks, and that is what I want to address with Vanilla Stack. What we want to address with Vanilla Stack. Again, we are no angels. We are by no means, I don't know, those don't I wouldn't even know how to say that in German. But basically, we are not those guys that basically say, here, take it and don't pay us for that. Vanilla Stack is a commercial product, because it is meant to make a living. Vanilla Stack is a product which we will use to charge huge amounts of money, but not to everyone. We will basically roll it out in different tiers with perhaps different services, commercial support, and so on and so forth. And you pay for what you need, but you won't pay for vendor lock with Vanilla Stack. And I would never ever, at least not willingly, impose some sort of vendor lock. Although I open Vanilla Stack. Let me finish that sentence. I open Vanilla Stack. Even to proprietary products. Again, it is an open source ecosystem, and perhaps even take away the open source in regards to if there is an app store. Why shouldn't I open it to proprietary software? The stack itself is open source. So I feel like there's nothing bad with proprietary software. But I feel like the basic foundation that we are working upon needs to be free, as in no vendor lock.
Free as in beer.
I did not want to say that.
No, Karsten, this has become very, very corporate. And that's actually a good thing, because we've talked about important stuff, but let me trash all of this right now. Let me trash all of the professionalism. So Karsten was saying, for one, he's turned off by proprietary software. And the second thing that proprietary software does, it gives you a lock-in. And that's why for future episodes, at least I am going to reference to these companies as the fetish stack. It's the fetish stack where you get hurt and where your bottom hurts after you've used it. And if you're like Karsten, who gets turned off by stuff like that, and you want the more cuddly and warm feeling and good option, then go join the Vanilla Stack, because that's where we're all friends and hold hands and are nice to each other. How about that for trashing a corporate message?
Fetish? It's even.
Vanilla.
I need to, let me put it that way. We are still.
All right, stop. Collaborate and listen. Check out Karsten's brand new invention. OpenStack, Kubernetes, Vanilla doing right. Ice, Karsten.
Huh? Did I miss out on something? My connection was just broken.
That was something from the fetish side.
You are the fetish side.
Oh, yes, I am.
I know. Chris?
Well, Karsten, you know what? Because you were saying you're very tired, and I think you need some downtime. Otherwise, the uptime will never work. I think it was awesome because, to be quite honest, I didn't really think I'd get a sneak peek with everybody else here online today, which was awesome, awesome, awesome. Looking forward to even more coming. And otherwise, we wanted to cut it short. Are we under an hour? That's the
No,
question.
we are not. We are not. We are not. Not at all. Not.
Oh,
Where are
well,
we? We are 1 hour and 5 minutes now.
we're under 1.5 hours, though.
We are still not done yet. Because, as usually, we need to end the show with doing some commercial stuff. Like pointing out to the website where you get more information about one of our presenters, which is Vanilla Stack. Chris, you know what? We should perhaps next week have a short conversation about Vanilla Stack. What it is about, how it perhaps sets itself apart. What do you think of that?
I think that's a very great idea. I'd be up for that.
Perhaps we should do that once. And the other internet address we need to show because if I don't do that, Federico will basically kill me right away. It's https://the-report.cloud because Vanilla Stack is presented by Vanilla Stack. open.clouds.dev is presented by
The Cloud Report, sponsoring open.clouds.dev. And if you don't want to get your butt hurt in strange fetish scenarios, please go to Vanilla. Oh, damn, I forgot the URL. I'm so
really?
sorry.
You already forgot it? No worries, Chris. I get you covered. Just head over to https://vanilla-stack.io. You can even leave out the minus in there, but that's not corporate.
So, wow. Karsten, this was the first open.clouds.dev where we showed some technology the world has not seen before. I feel like, I don't know, tonight I'm going to bed and I'm going to feel like Nuremberg's Steve Jobs.
You look like Nuremberg Steve Jobs.
Right.
Yeah. The glasses, man. The glasses.
And I'm just as unhealthy as that dude was.
Well, let me put it that way. He had an impact. And if we ran against the wall, we will have an impact as well. Poor wall. Poor wall. Chris, I do not want to see you for like 10 minutes.
Oh, that's awesome. Karsten, thank you for showing us everything today, and namaste.
Keep it confident. Tell nobody. It's a secret.
But if you did enjoy the show, please like, comment, and subscribe on Twitch, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. Thank you.